Thank you for the introduction. Thanks everyone for showing up and having me. So as said, my name is Jens. I'm with Google since about 4 years, and I do run our business, which we call a cloud platform, for Central and Eastern Europe. For the next 20, 25 minutes, that's the idea, I'll give you a little bit an overview of what kind of services we have at Google and how we try to support startups in a world that's increasingly going to mobile. I would like to start to give you a little bit of an idea what keeps us up at night, and what's really the things that we think about, and then taking this into consideration, what we try to do to help startups to not have to think about most of those things. So first thing or one of the important things that I want you to take away from here is everything that we see in the world of internet, IT, whatever you want to call it, services, is going mobile. So if you have not seen the Ben Evans presentation of Anderson Horowitz, mobile is eating the world, go to your favorite search engine, whichever that is, and search for Ben Evans, mobile is eating the world. It's very interesting, all the stats that he brought up. 2 stats I've picked out. So if you look at the population today, there's already 2 billion smartphones out there. So there is 2 billion users that have a smartphone, which means they have a computer in their hands, always with them, using it more or less 24/7. What's even more important, the estimate is that approximately more or less by 2020, 80% of all adults, probably all the people you're targeting that will spend money, will have a smartphone. This means 80% of all those people will carry a computer with them all the time. And for most of those people, for most of those 80%, a smartphone or a tablet will be the only and the first computer that they have ever used. They have no idea what a desktop computer is. Very different from how I grew up, or most of you maybe grew up. For them, the only computer that they've seen, what they equal with a computer, will be a mobile device. So mobile is really, really important. So now we know that mobile is really, really important. What does that mean? Like, what are the caveats that you should look out for? So number one thing is that you have to take into consideration, if we think mobile, users of mobile are always connected, and they're connected with each other. So they want to talk to each other. They are not using services just alone for themselves. They're always interacting with somebody else. And you have to take this into consideration if you want to deal with those potential clients of yours, your customers, your users. And second thing, also something very special that came up with mobile. Whatever you do on a mobile device, whatever service you're using, switching that service is very, very, very easy. Don't think that you have something that's unique to you or to what you're doing. I just took the example here of a game, a tower defense game, whatever, but you can search for whatever application you might want to use. There's probably tens, if not thousands or hundreds of applications popping up that do exactly the same. So switching your application, switching your product in a mobile world is extremely simple. So what are we doing, and what's one of the strategies that we employ and that I want to give you as an advice? Like we have 10 things at Google that we know to be true. It's like the core values, if you wish, that we have. And the number one value that we have is focus on the user, all else will follow. This is more or less what guided us when we built the search engine. So what we first did is we built a search engine, we built a product that everybody wanted to use and that they kept using. Because the user experience was so good that they did not go somewhere else, but always came back. We did not have a strategy how to monetize this in the beginning. But apparently we did a pretty okay job, and now we have figured monetization kind of for the search engine, and it's not too bad. But the important thing is focus on your users, keep your users using your services, and the rest you will figure out somehow going along those lines. So you should focus on your users. For you, if you're building in a mobile world, this should mean focus on your application, focus on your service. This is where your main focus should go into. Anything else that you do apart from focusing on your application, on the user experience, on what your user gets from you, is probably, I would say maybe 80% wasted effort, wasted time, wasted resources. This is the important part. So now I said we are doing something that we try to help you with. So how do we help you with? What are some of the things that I think we can help you with? So number two thing, besides everything is going mobile, number two thing that you should take away of, at least from my presentation, is that what we try to do at Google is we try to give you the power of everything that we do at Google to make life easier for you and to make it easy for you to focus on your users, to focus on your application. We want to help you building that application. We want to help you promoting that application, distributing that application, and monetizing that application. There's different areas at Google. There's a lot of services that we do, and we try to link this together so you can have the full, as my presentation is called, 360-degree life cycle of what you do, that we can support you with this. So you don't have to do all those things alone. You can focus on what's most important for you. So let me start at the beginning. How do we help you build stuff? What we want to do for you is build your stuff, build your application, build your product, and run it the way Google does. We had to do this for the last 16 years. We had to build stuff. We had to make sure this runs, and we had to make this transition to mobile. And now we want you to help with. We want to help you with that. If you do something, what you should focus on is the blue part, your application. But if you do this, if you build an application for the mobile world, there's more stuff that this application needs that you usually have to worry about. We don't want you to worry about this. We want to help you with all those components. I'm not going into details. There's a lot of services that we offer that you can use. You just plug into them, and then we manage all the heavy lifting for you, and you can focus on your application. All the other stuff, the red stuff that you saw on the previous slide, you don't have to take care of. Just to give you an example how this works. Can I see show of hands? Like Snapchat, people know, show of hands, who has heard of Snapchat? Okay, so if you have heard of them, this is exactly what Snapchat did, which is one of the prime examples of going from a very, very small startup, a 3-people startup, that built an application, which I would say in the beginning, very crappy, photo sharing, exploding photos. They started on just focusing on their application. They used services that were already out there, and then they grew from there. And they kept on focusing only on their users and their application. And now they send about 700 million photos each day, and they're still using the same services. So the services they used, the stuff they did exactly the same when they were 3 people. And now they're about 50-ish people and send 7 million photos. They still use the same services. They did not have to reinvent themselves. They did not have to spend time on refactoring anything of what they do. Once they had this huge success and grew like crazy from a couple of thousand users to millions of users. Bottom line, what we want to help you with is we don't want you to do stuff somewhere else, but we want you to do stuff differently for a mobile world, for a fast-growing world. That's what we are here to help you with in the build phase. So now you go from the build phase to, okay, I have a product, I have an application, I have a service, I have getting the first users, so what's next? The next thing you should do is discover new and discover also relevant users. Which means, if you have some users, they're usually, very simple segmentation of users. You have users that are highly engaged and you highly monetize, which is good. Nonetheless, there's users that either are engaged but not monetized, or users that you monetize but are not engaged, and even worse, users that you don't do any of. You have to cater to all those users and to all those users differently. You have to keep your high-paying, highly engaged users, keep them happy, keep them coming back, spreading the word for you. But you also have to get users that are not yet engaged with your application, engaged with your service. And you have to move them to a monetization path, whatever this path might be. The thing is, you have to find out which user falls into which bucket. And the more granular you can go, the better. But for the beginning, those 4 areas should suffice. But the thing is, you can gather a lot of data. So I'm based in Munich, so I'm from Germany. Well, yesterday we didn't have that good a football match, but generally we're very keen about the thing we do football. So anyone, I don't know, like Lithuania is probably more basketball than football, I don't know. So not so much football. But anyone has seen the World Cup last year? So these are some data points from a match during that World Cup. If you look at those data points, they seem very, very equal. You know, there's not much weighing to one side or the other side. What this should show you is, this is what you get if you gather a lot of data, and then you have no clue what to do with this data. You just look at the data, but you're not drilling into it. And this is the important part. Because for those who have not watched the World Cup and have not seen that match, so it looks very equal. If you go to the score was very different. So for all those that are not good in football and more into basketball, a 6-point difference in football is something like, I don't know, a 100-37 game in basketball. So it's a huge difference. But you only get this if you go to the very detailed data points and you go and you really analyze data that you capture. And this is also something we help you with different solutions and make it very simple for you to use. So you can gather data around your application, around your users from very, very different sources in whatever type of industry you are. So you can get internal data that you have in your systems. You can get data from social media, how your users talk about you, whatever. You can get data if you're more let's say, in the non-virtual world from sensors that you might work with, and so on and so forth. And we have a lot of tools that do this automatically, like Google Analytics and other tools. And we let you use other tools that we've built internally to do this data analysis very simply. What this means is that there are tools out there that give you the power, that give you the possibilities to do data analytics very, very simple, very, very easily, and at very, very low cost, even for a startup. You don't have to be a big bank, you don't have to be a big car manufacturer or whatever to do big data analysis these days. The days that only large Fortune 500 companies could do real data analysis and small companies couldn't, those days are over. So now you know, you try to segment your users, you use tools to drill into them, to capture all the data and to analyze it. Now you need to make some money. At least most of the startups I know, I work with, at some point they should make some money, somehow. We try to help you with this as well. So with Google Play, we try to help you if you build a mobile application to sell this application globally in a lot of countries. The good thing is, just a couple of weeks ago, we launched Merchant Center and the monetization possibility for Google Play also for the Baltics, which took us quite some time to get there, but now we're there. So now, even if you are here in Lithuania, in Estonia, wherever, you can use Google Play to monetize your application. And why is Google Play that important? I just took some stats from App Annie, and this is the growth that we're seeing. For Google Play, for Android applications, we have seen a 200% increase of spend per device over the last year, and we've seen a 150% revenue increase in total year over year for 2014 over 2013. Monetization, revenue on Android, on Play, is growing, and is growing at tremendous rates. So if you have an application, if you work on mobile and you want to monetize this, this is the place to be. This is where there's a real chance to reach millions, hundreds of millions of users, and a real good chance to really monetize your application selling via Play. But of course, selling your application is not the only way to monetize. There's more ways to monetize your application. How do we help you with this? So the first thing is, we try to integrate a lot of services and make them more seamless, working together. What we try to do, especially for mobile, is help you with what we call a mobile data hub. So get data into this hub, analyze, first collect those data points, analyze those data points, and then find ways to better monetize your users that you have on those mobile devices. What we've done is we've brought together two Google products, which are AdMob and Google Analytics, which are now more or less seamlessly working together. So you can collect data points, you can analyze those data points, and then you can use our services to monetize those data points. Let me illustrate that on a small example so you understand a little bit what we do and how this works. So there's an application, which in this case is a game called Flooded. And what they do, they have those interstitials that pop up. So that advertising for every player, when they reach a certain level, whatever, this advertisement pops up. This is the way they use to monetize their application. Now with the integration of AdMob and Google Analytics, what they now see is they get a lot of data points in analytics, and they can analyze them directly in analytics. And for example, they see here that in-app purchases compared to advertising is way bigger in Brazil than it is in other countries that their application is downloaded and used. Which means it seems that Brazilian users of their application are more willing to pay for in-app purchasing than any other of their users. And in-app purchasing is a good way for them to monetize in Brazil. Now, it's very simple for them with a couple of clicks to change how their users get exposed to ways of monetization with AdMob and the integration into analytics. So they collect the data, they analyzed the data, they understood not all users are the same, and in this case, users that are in a different geographical area are more likely to one way of monetization than to the other. With a couple of clicks, what they're now doing is, if you're a Brazilian user and you use your application, if it's time for the interstitial to show up, what the Brazilian user gets is a trigger for an in-app purchase, and what the rest of the world gets, or the other users, is the same advertisement or a relevant advertisement as they would get before. This has helped them to grow tremendously the revenue for their application just by linking those services. And just by collecting data points and just by analyzing those data points and getting the right cues out of those data points. So finally, to have some more time left for Q&A as well and to wrap up what I've told you, we see a tremendous shift to mobile. This is what keeps Google up, or Google engineers up at night, that the world is switching from desktop to mobile and how we capture this transition. The good thing for startups is, usually you don't deal with legacy. If you start your company now, start it for a mobile world. Don't deal with stuff that we've done 5 years, 10 years, maybe even 3 years ago. In a mobile world, it's very different from a more desktop-centric world. Number one is users are always connected. They want to talk to each other, which means an application and how you build it, and a lot of services that have to run in the backend are a little bit more complex. And you should take care of that and probably use some services that are pre-built. Why? Because switching an application today, switching a provider is very, very simple. If you don't focus on your user, if you don't focus on your application and focus on what you should do best, your users are probably as quickly gone as you have acquired them. So try to hand over stuff to other people that are really good in doing this, which is not core to what you're building, to your application, to the service you're building. Let somebody else deal with the complexity of all the rest. Building your application, growing your audience, acquiring users, analyzing those users, keeping those users engaged, and then in the end, monetizing those users. We try to help you with all of this. We try to align all the Google services in a 360-degree way so that you can talk to us on whichever stage of the cycle you are. And we try to get as much of the complexity away from you and make it very easy for you to focus on what you do best, which is your application and which is your service. With that, I'm done with my quick overview of those 360 degrees of the life cycle and how we help you with. And I'm happy to take questions for the last 8 to 7 minutes. Thank you. Do we have questions? Yeah, question? Do we have a microphone?
Do we have a microphone? Here is coming. Don't forget the pitch challenge in 1 minute.
Okay. So the question would be like, I create an app and I want it stored in Google Play, and on Google Play there is like a lot of apps, like thousands, hundreds of thousands of apps, and how I should attract people to download my app.
Okay, which is a good question. So for everybody, did everybody catch the question? Okay. So how should you attract clients if you have one app and there's thousands of similar apps to it?
Where should I start?
So generally speaking, there's a lot of stuff that you can do around Google Play. So I'm not a Google Play expert, so I'm not sure if there's anything specific you can do in Play. But the thing is, there is a lot of, let's say, other marketing stuff that you can do to get your app recognized. You know, work with blogs that talk about your app, use traditional means of online marketing to make your apps more known. And then the way it works, especially for Play, is to get featured or to get on the front page of Play. You need a couple of, there's a specific download threshold that you have to pass, and then your app needs good ratings. Which brings me back to the point, focus on your application. If your app is crap and you get crap reviews, or you're not reacting to reviews that people give to your app in the Play Store, you will not have a good rating. There is no chance you would get featured. There is probably not a good chance you would ever get recognized in the Play Store.
Thank you.
Is there more questions?
Yeah, so the question is maybe what's the next big thing? And yeah, maybe you check the local Lithuanian apps and what you think about them, and maybe from your experience you're going to say, we need this, and maybe we just need some kind of new app from like what's working from like Germany or whatever.
So good question. So if I would know what's the next big thing, I would probably not be here on stage. I have no clue what's the next big thing, to be very honest. I mean, the thing that we see, and which is probably more favorable to you here in like the Baltic states than it is more to the traditional European economies, we see that the move to digital, and however you would call it, digitalization, is shaking up a lot of industries. Industries that we have thought that will stay the same for the next 100 years, and also industries that are just getting started. What I think is, so I cannot tell you which kind of industry might be the next to be disrupted, but the thing is, what we see is, what seems to be a problem with traditional companies, they're not so much focused on user experience. And wherever there is a startup or a new player that makes it easier for the customer, for the user, to use a service or to buy a product or whatever it is, they have a very good chance of disrupting. I think one of the previous presentations, you've seen those top 5 industries that get disrupted. Transportation was an industry that didn't change for, I don't know what, 100 years. Now there is a lot of those mobile apps to get a taxi, to get whatever, like Uber and so on, which are shaking this up. The same seems to happen in finance, although finance is probably a little bit harder because there's a lot of regulation, especially in Europe. Energy is also a good sector probably, but there's also a lot of regulation. I would not focus too much on sectors that are highly regulated, because probably it hinders your growth as a startup. Besides that, that would be my best guess right now. More questions? No?
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.